We're talking free agent targets for the San Francisco 49ers in 2026. Could there be a Bosa brothers reunion? And what about Alec Pierce? Do the 49ers need a dynamic downfield weapon in the offense? On today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BB Peacock at Coach Crocky. Thanks everybody so much for joining us and making us your first listen of the day on the Locked On Podcast Network. And thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. And we stay your team every day throughout the offseason. So tune in and please subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. Let's talk a little bit about free agency and what the 49ers could use. And a couple of names have stood out to me this week, thinking about the 49ers offseason, Croc, and particularly the names that have been thrown our way from our listeners. And I want to start on the defensive side of the ball with none other than Joey Bosa. And there was an article from Pro Football Focus today, and they attached one free agent best fit for every team in the NFL. And they thought that Joey Bosa, Nick's brother, would be the perfect fit for the San Francisco 49ers this offseason. This is what they had to say about Joey Bosa and potentially becoming a member of the San Francisco 49ers. And you can find the whole article at PFF talking about one player for every single team. And by the way, they had Juwan Jennings going to the New Orleans Saints, which would be confusing because they already have Juwan Johnson. And a lot of people already get those two guys confused. San Francisco 49ers, Joey Bosa. And they said, essentially, Joey Bosa's one-year stint with the Bills was generally favorable. The former Charger not only stayed healthy. Wow, that'd be nice to have a player that did that for the 49ers, right? Stayed healthy, which hasn't been Joey Bosa's strength. He also got after the quarterback. His 85.5 PFF pass rush grade was the 8th best among qualified edge defenders. As the 49ers seek more viable options on the outside, pairing the Bosa brothers would be both fun and a sound football move. What do you think? Joey Bosa to the San Francisco 49ers. We talked about it last offseason. He went to Buffalo on a one-year deal, free agent once again, Joey Bosa. This time stayed healthy. Is he going to get more money this offseason because he was healthy versus the year before? I feel like he would.
I think you would think that, but I think he's at that point in his career where it's like, okay, how much more are you paying him per year, or is it a one-year contract? I do believe that when you talk about him being a great fit for the San Francisco 49ers, a big part of it is with some of these guys, you just don't know what they're going to be. At least with him, like, if he's on the field, exactly what he is. He's a terrific edge defender. He can slide inside. He can help versus the run. And obviously you have other guys that you want to be that kind of big body guy in the interior, or even a guy like Michael Williams where you slide from the outside inside to pass rush from there. But he can help with all of that as well. So I wouldn't mind it. The 49ers clearly could probably look to bolster up a little bit of their defensive line. I've talked a lot about maybe the 49ers not needing a lot of edge guys because it's like, well, you got all these guys are hurt. You got White, who just got shot in the ankle. You have Michael Williams coming off a torn ACL. You got Nick Bosa coming off a torn ACL. And then you're adding someone who definitely has a rich injury history, but was very healthy last season. So I'm not sure what to expect. But I guess you just continue to throw bodies out there and see what sticks and who plays. And maybe everybody plays for the entire season, and all of a sudden you have a great defensive line. So I do think what he brings would be a good fit. Is he as big as the name? And I would say, well, he's definitely leaning towards being that because last year he was the 8th best pass rushing edge rusher in the entire NFL.
Yeah, you don't add a player just because he's related to another player, first of all. And I think that's the number one reason why his name gets brought up. But he's also a good player. And so from that aspect, yeah, of course, you would want to bring in good players. We've talked about it's really a similar conversation that we had last offseason is we know one thing that Bosa's have in common, aside from being beastly defensive linemen, is they don't take discounts. And so Joey Bosa is going to go where the most money takes him, right? He's not going to take a discount to play with his little brother. At least we haven't seen any inclination that the Bosa family is going to go that route. And so,
especially not in California. Like,
right.
I mean, you're getting hit with all these different taxes, and it's really ridiculous. I just saw this stat about uh, Sam Darnold getting taxed in California, and it looked all crazy. I think that it was kind of reported a little weird though.
No.
I think it included like a Super Bowl, like a bonus for like Super Bowl or something like that.
Yeah,
But
because you get taxed based on where you play.
yeah, but yeah, it got the jock tax thing going on.
Right.
And if I'm Bosa, I believe the Bosa's like they live in Florida. So
Florida.
it's like if I'm in Florida, I ain't getting taxed out here. I don't believe they have state taxes. You come to California, you're getting hit over the head. I'm gonna need a little extra money, or I'll just go somewhere where it's either less taxes, cheaper, or less taxes and cheaper, as opposed to going to Santa Clara to play football.
Although he was in New York. New York state tax, I don't think is cheap either. It might not be as much as New York City or New Jersey potentially. I don't know.
Well, and then what's the cost of living in Buffalo as opposed to San Jose, Santa Clara?
Right, much cheaper. Yeah.
So it's like there's an offset there. It's like even if it's not your forever home, but it's just where I stay, my apartment. I mean, I remember playing for the San Jose SaberCats, and I had an apartment in Sunnyvale. It was like $2,200. Now this is 2015, because $2,200 get you something probably very, very, very regular now, even in Stockton, California.
Yeah.
But in 2015 in Sunnyvale, California, it was like $2,200 for a basic 2-bedroom apartment. And when I say basic, I mean just the ugly carpet, the nasty countertops and cabinets, like just the most basic. I'm like, damn, it's expensive here in the Bay Area. I can only imagine now, especially if you want to live somewhere that's nice. And it's like, yeah, you make a lot of money, but again, you're getting taxed out of this world. You know, just cost of living in general for a lot of professional athletes, flying people in and out. I mean, I don't want to spend thousands more than I have to on top of the taxes. And it's like, this is not even my residence.
All that to be said, if Joey Bosa wants the most money, he probably won't get it with the 49ers. But if he wants to take a discount and play with his little brother, I mean, you got to be open to that if you're the 49ers. And, you know, he might be one of the best pass rushers you can get, even though in my mind, when I'm looking at pass rushers for the 49ers, they already have Mykel Williams, who's a big run defending defensive end, and they have Keon White. And I'm picturing more of a speed type rusher, a stand-up type rusher that we saw Raheem Morris draft 2 of in last year's draft, not necessarily to go full, you know, odd front, change the scheme, but, you know, Huff's going to be around maybe 1 year. Maybe he won't even be around this year, depending on what goes on with his contract. So that's the kind of player that's been in my mind. But Joey Bosa is both a good run defender and a good pass rusher if he can stay healthy. And so he would certainly be interesting, but he's going to go where the most money takes him, as the Bosas generally do.
I think ideally you do want that, you know, complementary type of pass rusher and have that guy speed off the edge. I think, you know, Leonard Floyd was different than Nick Bosa, or one in a different way. So you kind of like that balance. But I think where the 49ers are right now, it's kind of like having you want that. Oh, I want my cornerbacks 6'1", 200 pounds, you know, run the 4.4. But at some point, like, I just need good football players. Can I just get a good corner? And right now, the 49ers, you may want that speedy edge guy, but I just need somebody that's good.
Yeah, somebody who can play. And you can never have too many good defensive linemen. So I've kind of struggled with that this offseason too, is the idea that, because if you sign Joey Bosa, he's going to start across from Nick Bosa. So are you admitting defeat with Mykel Williams? If he's suddenly, because the thing that Mykel Williams can do is be on the field on first down and be an edge setting run defender, right? If he's healthy and comes back from his ACL. And then I think about Alfred Collins in round 2. These are top 50 picks. And if your first round pick needs to be a similar sized edge or defensive tackle, are you admitting defeat on your first 2 picks from last year? So I see a lot of the Florida defensive tackle and the Ohio State defensive tackle getting mocked to the 49ers at the end of round 1, which is fine. And they're good players. And you need to have a really good defensive line. So spending resources on defensive linemen, I don't have a problem with. But if you have to draft another defensive lineman to make up for the deficiencies of the guy you just drafted in the top 50, pick 11 or pick 49, 48, I can't remember where the 49ers picked last year in the second round, but it was inside the top 50 with Alfred Collins, then are you admitting defeat on those early picks from last year? So that's why I'm thinking more complementary, rotational rusher types when I'm thinking of an interior guy. I'm just like, how good of a pass rusher is he? Don't care how big he is. Edge rusher, don't care how big he is. We've got, you added the run defenders. can this guy get after the quarterback off the edge? Those are the types of players I think I'm looking for the 49ers this offseason, more than trying to replace with an every down guy at tackle or edge, because you just drafted those guys that should be good run defenders and could start for you this year.
We've seen the 49ers and we've questioned some of their logic behind certain things they do. And if there's anyone that is quick to either pivot or kind of give up on something quick, I think it's the 49ers. I do have one question for you. And this is completely off topic a little bit. I kind of touched on it earlier with the taxes and stuff. 49ers played 2 games, one in Mexico, one in Australia. Do they got jock taxes, or how do you get taxed on that playing out the country?
That's a great question. What is it? Let us know if you live in or around Mexico City or Australia. I don't think we have confirmation yet on the Mexico City game, but I think there's been enough kind of hinted at that I think that is going to happen at some point late in the season, but I don't think we know for sure on that one. But yeah, what's the tax situation like in Melbourne, Australia, or in Mexico City? And I wonder if that's a bonus or not for 49ers players. All right, let's talk wide receiver. Another one of the most the most popular name I've seen from listeners and 49ers fans as a player connected to the 49ers in free agency, wide receiver, formerly, we'll see if he changes teams, of the Indianapolis Colts free agent Alec Pierce. And George Kittle speaks on the electrical frequencies in the substation and has a very reason to take on it that I want to relay as well. Next. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. Get all the documents together, give it to your TurboTax agent, and then go back to doing your mock drafts like you want to do all day long, right? With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local expert, a TurboTax expert in person, or connect online, whatever's more convenient for you. And they handle everything. We're talking W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. And for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert did not file for you last year, just file by February 28. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. That's TurboTax.com/local. Let's talk Alec Pierce, Croc. He is one of the top free agent wide receivers available. It has been reported that George Pickens is going to get the franchise tag by the Dallas Cowboys, whether he plays under the tag or they still get a deal done. He's going to get the franchise tag at wide receiver. So potentially the best wide receiver available then on the free agent market could be Indianapolis Colts receiver Alec Pierce. Still young, just hitting the market for the first time, been in the NFL for 4 years, led the league in yards per catch of the last 2 seasons, had his first 1,000-yard season last year for the Indianapolis Colts. And I want your thoughts on Alec Pierce, because I am not sold on Pierce being the right fit for the San Francisco 49ers and being a big money free agent, which we've seen the wide receiver market explode the last few years. And, $25+ million potentially is what I'm seeing out there as what you'd have to pay to bring in the services of one Alec Pierce.
It is tough to have this conversation when it pertains to the 49ers, because I believe that you can go into the draft and find a very productive receiver, very productive. First round, second round, third round, you can find those guys and get immediate impact. The 49ers just don't quite lean into it that way. And when they have happened to have guys that are very productive, it either took a little while for them to get going, or Kyle wasn't really looking to have that guy, but he kind of had no choice, right? I mean, even go back to 2017, guys like Trent Taylor, Kendrick Bourne, they end up kind of having to play more so out of necessity, as opposed to, I really want this guy to be involved, even though they're rookies. So I think most teams just say, oh, we just draft a receiver first round, second round. He's going to come in and we're going to make sure that he's good with the quarterback. And Kyle was just like, I'll play him whenever he's ready. So I think because of that, and the 49ers, not saying their Super Bowl window is closing or anything, I think they're going to want somebody who's going to come in and, in his mind, click with the squad, make more of an immediate impact. And he is a guy that is probably, or would lean more towards saying, all right, let's go pay a guy to come in and play right now. And I know I don't have to put him in the doghouse or groom him to be what I need him to be or anything, or change any of his practice habits, right? Which are not bad things, but we've just seen that with Kyle, as opposed to maybe some other teams with younger receivers, even as they go through growing pains. So Alec Pierce is a very interesting one because he is good. He's a good receiver. He's a terrific deep ball threat. We've seen that. I saw you talking about it, having a discussion on social media. 21 yards per catch, cool. But does he fit the style that the 49ers play? And I'm not sure. I think that the Colts gave him a lot of opportunities where it's just like, we're just going to throw the ball up and you're either going to outrun guys or you're going to make some contested catches. And he did a terrific job of that at Cincinnati with Desmond Ridder. But that's not really what the 49ers do. So now if they're asking him to change his game, are you getting what you are paying for? Because now how much different of a receiver will he look when you ask him to do something different than what ultimately is getting him paid?
He, first of all, and he's gotten better and better every year. So he's a good player. I want to get that out of the way first. And if you said, hey, would you like to have an Alec Pierce on your roster? I'd be like, yeah. Do you want to pay $25 million for Alec Pierce on your roster? I'd say, no. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit. We've had a similar conversation with Juwan Jennings. Is he going to get $20 million, man? I don't think you can do that. And I think the wide receiver market, first of all, is just bonkers and out of whack as far as free agent wide receivers go. Guys are getting too much money because I don't think the scarcity is there. Dane Brugler put out his top 100. He's got 17 wide receivers in his top 100 of the draft. Last year, there was like 15 players drafted in the top 100 in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft, right? Year before, I think it was 14 or 15 or 16. They're saying, like, you can find wide receivers there. It's a plentiful thing. And so I don't know why teams are spending so much money on it. And you end up paying a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2 money, and you spend wide receiver 2s, you spend wide receiver 1 money on. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot. And the 49ers have a good enough offense, a good quarterback, and a mind like Kyle Shanahan. They should be able to develop their own guys. And they have in some cases. We talked about it with Kendrick Bourne. Like, okay, Kendrick Bourne, you have to let him walk. You can't pay him because guess what? You got Juwan Jennings. You should be able to find another guy to fill that role if you are the 49ers. And it's a huge failure if they're not able to do that. And as far as Alec Pierce goes, and he is elite. Like, he gets open off the line. His release packages are good. He's got legit speed, 6'3", 212 pounds. Runs a 4.41, and he gets open, and he's a deep ball threat, but he only catches 56% of his balls, his 18-point-something air yards. He only gets 3 yards after the catch per catch, So it's just not the style of player I think the 49ers would utilize. I think it'd be a bad fit for Alec Pierce. I think Alec Pierce would choose another team. I think the 49ers probably, it's not smart money to go after Alec Pierce. And I know he scored a couple touchdowns on the 49ers this year, and that might be part of it as well. And yeah, it sounds nice. And the other part of it is, what should the 49ers be able to utilize a player like that more? I think, Croc, you and I would both probably say yes. But from what history tells us, probably not. It's just not how they operate the offense. And, he can run some other routes, but I just think fit-wise and what you have to pay, I don't think it's the right move.
Yeah, he would. I could see him doing well in the offense. Will he justify the money that you're paying him? And so far, what we've seen, when the 49ers pay a receiver and all of a sudden the expectations for what that guy is heightens, and you're asking to get a certain level of consistency at the number or the dollar amount that they're making per year, we have not seen that for whatever reason, right? It wasn't Debo, it wasn't Ayuk at all. I mean, people were like, oh, why the hell did you pay this dude Ayuk? He is terrible right now. Maybe it's because he sat out. And it's like, well, he had one game where he had double-digit targets. Outside that, it was a little wonky. It was a little weird, but it's not an offense that's catering to a receiver. It's not. They'd rather throw the ball to Christian McCaffrey or George Kittle. It's not an offense that says, hey, man, you're CeeDee Lamb. We're going to find every which way to target you the ball. We're going to move you around. You're going to get 12-plus targets a game. Ayuk had his all-pro year with one game where he had double-digit targets, and it was 10. It wasn't even more than 10. So that just goes to show the 49ers and how they're kind of viewing these guys and how they're utilizing them. It will be hard for even a free agent receiver to come in and justify whatever dollar amount you throw at him.
He only caught 47 passes last year. And when you lead the league in yards per catch, 21.3, you end up getting 1,000 yards still. But we're talking the dollars per target would be kind of nuts if you give Alec Pierce $25+ million per year. 47 catches on 84 targets. It's only a 56% catch percentage because we're talking about low percentage throws down the field.
Also, quarterback situation, not the greatest. Daniel Jones was playing lights out for a while, but
he gets Rivers threw 2 touchdowns to him against the Niners.
Well, yeah.
Put some respect on Phil Rivers' name.
And then he retired like 2 days later.
He did. He wants to come back and be a coach, though. He had a head coach interview. So Alec Pierce, I don't know. So the other name is, let's talk about some of the other names that are out there as well. Next, if maybe Alec Pierce shouldn't be the 49ers' number 1 target in free agency. And George Kittle speaks on the substation. Had some interesting comments on it next. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by FanDuel. The winter games are officially here. I talked with this about Williamson earlier today, Croc. Do you know what the triathlon is?
Yeah, it's like multiple events, but
yeah, the triathlon is like cycling, swimming, and running. But the biathlon, the Winter Olympics have the biathlon. What events do you think those are for the biathlon? Because I was watching it last night. It's cross-country skiing and rifle shooting. I love it. It's fantastic.
That is a wild combination of
and
events.
The funny thing is like, I knew there was a sport called the biathlon, and I was like, well, what's this sport called? And I was like, biathlon. So they went from biathlon with cross-country skiing and rifle shooting. First of all, I don't know how that even gets put together. And then the triathlon is just 3 completely different. They're just unrelated. So anyway.
How do you train for that?
That's what I love about the Winter Olympics. They're insane. Curling, like who does this? How does this even happen? How is this sport even developed? It's so fascinating. I love it. I can't get enough, but that's why you got to follow the Winter Games on FanDuel. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care about most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. We're talking about curling, speed skating, hockey. I love international hockey. And FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. So if not Alec Pierce, then who do the 49ers target at wide receiver that is potentially a free agent? We talked yesterday about Deebo Samuel. He's out there. He's the opposite of Alec Pierce. He's all yak, right? And in fact, still 6.5 yards after the catch, which is something the 49ers were very much missing in their offense this year. What about Romeo Doubs? I think he's the next most common name, and his profile is somewhat similar to Alec Pierce. As he's an outside receiver, can get down the field, but maybe a little bit more complete in the intermediate to short range of the football field. Romeo Doubs, Croc, would you break the bank for a Romeo Doubs free agent? Would he start next to Ricky Pearsall and be a nice 1-2 for the 49ers?
I just couldn't see myself breaking the bank for him. But he is a good, very, very well-rounded receiver. I loved Romeo Doubs coming out of Nevada. I remember when I was very high on Christian Watson, but when I saw Green Bay draft Romeo Doubs, I actually thought Green Bay was going to draft Alec Pierce. I felt like, oh, great. Not trying to compare him to another receiver that looks like him, but like Jordy Nelson, like, I see it.
Come
right?
on,
That's a guy, vertical threat. But Romeo Doubs, when I saw them draft him, I'm like, oh, I think he's going to be more productive than Christian Watson and just have more consistency and more of a vibe with, at the time, it was Aaron Rodgers. So this is a guy that won. You talk about winning clean off the line of scrimmage. Releases were really good, played extremely well in space, throttled down his routes extremely well, caught the ball extremely well. And at the NFL level, I feel like he's lived up to where he was drafted, right? He's averaging, a little bit over, 600 yards per season. 422 the first year. After that, 674, 601, 724. And he scored a lot of touchdowns in that time too. 21 touchdowns in 4 seasons. So he's been very productive. He feels more like a solid wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 type, but wide receiver 2 type. He could be that for you if you need him to be. I know the Green Bay Packers, they almost did receiver by committee, where it's just a little bit more 49er-ish, but not quite. But it's just like whoever kind of the hot hand is for that game, they can get off. But you're not going to go on Underdog Fantasy or FanDuel or anything and start betting on the receivers because Reed might go off, and then it might be Watson, then it might be Doubs. You don't know who it's going to be from game to game. But Doubs was productive, and I feel like he was very consistent when he was on the field. So if I'm the 49ers and you don't have to break the bank, right? We're talking 15,000, which might not be realistic. I think he could fit the role of someone that's getting that.
If I was shopping and utilizing, I'm looking at Sport Track right now and the projected market value for these receivers. And I think some of it's a little bit off just because, like for Juwan Jennings, he's being treated as he was the number one for the 49ers, which he ended up being, but he wasn't supposed to be, right? And so I think that's, because they're kind of, I think it's more of a formula. You're going by, okay, how many targets, how many snaps, how many games started, and those types of things. And I think you watch the 49ers, you realize that Juwan Jennings wasn't really their number one or wasn't supposed to be their number one. If Brandon Ayuk was there, he drops down to kind of the number three. But because of injuries, he became what he became. Alec Pierce was a number two, was a 1,000-yard receiver, right? He gets expensive. But Romeo Doubs is the opposite. And he's listed at, so Alec Pierce and Juwan Jennings over $20 million per year is what the market value says on here. Doubs is down to $12 million per year. And he was kind of the opposite where there was just a committee and there were so many guys involved. I think it's the reverse for him where it's maybe suppressing his value. So if that's what it would cost him versus the other guys, I think you're getting a number two, whether you're getting Pierce or Doubs. I think Alec Pierce definitely more explosive downfield player. But I would take Doubs all day at that dollar amount if that's what you're talking about for bringing in a wide receiver too. I think that makes a lot more sense. I don't know what he's going to end up getting. And maybe for the 49ers, it would make sense to have not a 1, 2, 3 at wide receiver, but maybe a 2A, 2B, 2C even situation of different skill sets just because of the way that Kyle Shanahan's offense runs, and it's not going to be the same guy week to week getting all the targets.
12 million a year. It's a no-brainer. I'm going to get him. And if you told me, hey, we got a healthy, that seems like a tall task nowadays, but healthy Ricky Pearsall, right? He's just out there. He's going to be out there. And then you have Romeo Doubs, and then you have maybe you could bring back a Deebo Samuel, right? At a lower dollar amount or whatever. You kind of have that guy, and just one of these guys, right? Can one of these young guys just step up and be productive as a fourth receiver or whatnot? I would really like that combination of guys because you have a little bit of everything. Got a little bit of speed with a guy like Watkins, or you have Jacob Cowing who can kind of separate and get you something. Maybe they're only going to get 20 catches on the year, but it's more productive than what we've seen so far from them. And then you have a Deebo Samuel who doesn't have to be a high volume target guy at this point in his career, and he's not making that kind of money. But you got a Romeo Doubs who can pitch in and give you 700 yards with Ricky Pearsall, who's potentially your 1,000-yard guy. And then you still have George Kittle coming back from injury, but you have Kittle. And you still like to throw the ball to Christian McCaffrey. I could see that where, okay, we're going to add 2 free agent guys to go with who we have and be able to go out there with our young quarterback. I like it. I like that.
With any of these guys, the number has to be right. And is the league going crazy with wide receivers and they're going to get overpaid? That's why when we did when I did my mock offseason and my mock draft earlier this week, Croc, I had the 49ers going with the tight end. So I think tight end money is smarter money. What you're getting in Kyle Pitts, say, versus what his market value might be as a tight end. I mean, you're talking about Kyle Pitts plus George Kittle might equal 1 Alec Pierce. Like, in what world does that make sense, right?
That's wild. But so would you do that? Would you say, all right, we're going to go, we got Ricky Pearsall, we're going to add Kyle Pitts. Eventually, Kittle will come back. He'll be healthy. Yeah. All right. We add Romeo Doubs, and that's kind of our core group of pass catchers.
Then you draft another guy, day 2, day 3, to compete with Cowing, to compete with Watkins, and that's your 3, 4, 5.
I like it.
I mean,
no Deebo kind of hurts my heart a little bit because
Deebo's number's got to be right with Deebo because, like, I think you get excited and he's familiar. I'm not paying Deebo, whatever money he was getting before. It would have to be a little bit of a discount. I think the 49ers might be willing to go a little higher on Deebo than I might be willing to. But it would have to start to be journeyman money. It's similar to what we're talking about with Joey Bosa, right? You need to be in the journeyman category of your career, short term. Then let's go and let's try to get in the band together a little bit. But we're going to add some other youth along with you. And again, the wide receiver class is deep again. And so whether it's round 1, 2, 3, 4, I think there's a player the 49ers can bring in that should be able to come in and contribute, but we know how hard that is for the 49ers to draft and develop and get a guy on the field early. So whether it's trade or free agency, I do expect the 49ers to bring in a starting caliber player. Who's the right player? I want to hear from you guys out there at BD Peacock, at Coach Crocky. Real quick on the substation subject. George Kittle was speaking on it, and he said something interesting, and he credited Kyle Juszczyk as well. And he talked about the trees. Have you heard the theory about the trees outside the substation?
Tabor Pepper
Yes.
mentioned it, said, check out the trees on the other side of the field and then look at the trees next to the substation. So I have heard it, but I never looked at the trees.
Something the trees thing is the thing that the players have been talking about for a while, apparently. And Kittle said that they cut the trees down at some point. So the trees aren't there anymore. So you can't compare those. But he said it this way. He's like, look, we're highly tuned athletes, and we're trying to get 1% better every day, whether it's cold tub or whatever methods you're using. You're trying to get that little bit of an advantage and just a 1% advantage. If there's something happening with the substation and it's taken away a half of that percentage, then it's something that you'd be worried about, right? And so it might not even be a big thing, but even if it's a little thing, they got to get it figured out, right? And so it makes sense from that standpoint when he brings it up. Because, I mean, just the minor little day-to-day advantages you're trying to get over another player. And if you have something that's working against it, he brought up, like, what if your shoulder pads didn't quite protect you right? Or there was something else that, you would fix it, and you're trying to get as good as you can and just get that 1 little percent better every single day. And if something else is taking away 0.25% of that, then you'd want to know about it, and you'd want to do something about it. And I thought that was a pretty reasoned response to the substation. And obviously he doesn't know. We don't know. I don't know. And there's been some doctors out there debunking it. It's whatever it is, Croc. I just think the 49ers have to get out in front and do a study and just say, look, we're either moving or this is nonsense. And here's the study. Shove it up your ass. You know what I mean? Like that. The 49ers have to come out definitive on this thing.
Yeah. And I feel like some of the conversations, even with like Jet York, didn't feel when he was on with Kay Adams, did not help.
Yeah, not helpful whatsoever. But it makes it like it's a great point by Kittle, right? Even if it's a little bit, that's enough, because every little bit matters.
I mean, that little bit could have been the difference between, oh, usually I can make this step and I'm perfectly fine. I made this one step and got tackled and I ruptured my Achilles. It didn't look like anything crazy when he went down until they start slow motioning it. Maybe it was always going to go out, or maybe it's been weakening little by little
every single time
because of what they got going on.
The other thing that Fred said that George Kittle talked about too is, like, Fred Warner says, I absorb it and it's giving me superpowers. So maybe there's that side of things too. And Fred Warner's been injured once in his entire career. He missed one game before this season in his career.
He's taking a little bit of his calcium, snapped his ankle though. I was there in Tampa Bay. God. It was bad.
It's so stupid. The whole thing is so dumb. Figure it out. And figure it out.
I'll say this. Being around, and I view myself more like the fan base. And I was kind of like, if you were a fan and you just got this ultimate fan experience to be a part of an NFL program and just have eyes on what it's like that was me. These dudes, they're very meticulous about how they take care of their body at the professional level. And I'm not sure people quite grasp that.
Dude, Christian McCaffrey's dad didn't let him wear jeans to school on game day.
That's extreme. No, that was extreme. But but these dudes do have, I mean, he was like, oh, the jeans are too heavy on game day. And he didn't want I remember that. That's pretty wild. But just watching those dudes and how they take care of their bodies and the extent that they go through to how they warm up. They warm up before the warm up. Yeah. They start to fine tune their body with these little things before even touching a weight. Like, it's just all these little things that they do to take care of their body so that they can be the best that they could be on the field. And if you have something that's even taking away a little bit of that outside of already just aging, I feel them. I would want to know. I would want to know, and I would want to know. There has to be no doubt that this is not messing with our bodies at all. Otherwise, it would be a big problem.
I'm surprised Christian McCaffrey hasn't asked to be traded, to be honest with you. Did you hear the story Super Bowl weekend where he turns off his Wi-Fi every night?
Yeah. So I know he feels something about it. His dad's probably said something too.
He's got to be the if anybody is worried about the substation, Christian McCaffrey's got to be number one.
Turning off the Wi-Fi at night is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, they're built different, Croc.
He we talk all about, is he going to stay healthy? He's going to stay healthy. He's hurt. He played the whole year.
He did. Against all odds. Christian McCaffrey. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen. Check out the Everydayer Club. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. And Croc and I back tomorrow right here, Locked On 49ers.